If you put them in a situation where they've laid out this plan and one of their peers then picks that apart in an open forum and proceeds to tell them everything that is wrong with that plan, you're probably going to get one of two reactions. Hello and welcome back to MIM's YouTube channel. I'm Adam Norman, the CEO here at MIM, the company that brings you the global best practice in IT major incident management, training and certification to clients in over 80 countries. So what I want to talk to you about today is conflict management. And interestingly enough, when you first introduce people to styles of conflict management, their mind typically goes to conflict that they will have. So as a major incident manager, you're not going to be a stranger to having friction or conflict in the workplace. It's high stress, it's likely that emotions can often run high, and you no doubt will have experienced some conflict yourself. However, what I would expect is, as you master leadership and communication skills that we teach, the number of conflicts that you have should massively decrease. You should not be regularly having friction, whether it's with stakeholders, customers, technical resolving groups or suppliers. As you really master these skills, continue to practice and refine them, you're going to be tailoring your communication styles to the different personality types, meaning there's going to be far less opportunity for people to misunderstand or misinterpret either the communication you're having or even the intent, because it's going to be very, very clear in language they understand for their personality type. And as you master leadership, the way that you lead, motivate and inspire, again, should minimize those opportunities for conflict. So what I think about when I think about conflict management for major incident management is I think about the technical resolving groups in particular having conflict with one another. And I think about whether it's your suppliers, your partners, could be some stakeholders, either within your own organisation or external, it could be your clients. And I think about the major incident manager's job as this leader to be helping others to navigate this conflict. And I'd like to give you an example. If you've watched our other videos, you will know that I like to use this analogy of brain power. So think of your technical resolving groups. Let's keep the number small to keep it simple, but let's say there's 10 of them that's working on a major incident with you. Each one of those represents 10% of brain power, okay? If 2 of those have conflict, you've just lost 20% of brain power. And what I mean by that is, so for example, one of the technical resolving group members lays out a plan of action publicly on a bridge call in front of their peers that they trust and respect. Potentially you've got, I don't know, service directors on there, you might have your client on there in some scenarios, you're on there, so it's a public forum. Technical resolving group members within the psychometric profiling types within the DISC methodology, more often than not, sit within S or C, so S for steadiness personality type, or C for conscientiousness type, or one of the styles that sits within those. And so typically you see highly analytical people, you see people who are very conscientious and steady within their work. And what this means is you often see that their self-confidence, at least their professional self-confidence, comes from their competence. And what I mean by that is that they take pride in being very good at their job. Particularly if they're a technical specialist that's working on major incidents, they're likely to have worked very hard, studied for years and years and years, to be very good at a technical discipline or multiple technical disciplines. And so a lot of their confidence in the workplace is in their competence at their role. If you put them in a situation where they've laid out this plan and one of their peers then picks that apart in an open forum and proceeds to tell them everything that is wrong with that plan, you're probably going to get one of two reactions. They're either going to withdraw and contribute far less, or they're going to disagree, and there's going to be some verbal conflict. And depending on the culture you have, depending on the individuals, massively depends on the scale of conflict that you're going to get, how professionally the conflict gets handled, or not in some cases. So there's loads of variables that sit within this and what that conflict's going to look like. But if you think about that, if both parties, if both of those technical resolving groups are put out, it's not 10% brain power and 10% brain power. I mean, you've lost 20% because these two people are now both unhappy and they're not quite contributing to the level they should be. Major incidents typically have, 2 to 3 technologies that are the leading issue within that major incident, meaning you may have other supporting technical group members on there, but really you're probably looking at only a few technical disciplines. If the person who's just laid out a plan is from the discipline that is most likely to be contributing to this major incident and the fix is going to have to come from that, well, you're talking like 50% of the brain power on that call all of a sudden, maybe even more, maybe 70%, and maybe the person that's disagreed with them is the other 30%. So you could almost be talking about 100% of the contribution and intelligent brain power that you have there that's required to resolve this major incident, suddenly not bringing their highest levels of performance, either withdrawing or ending up in conflict with one another. And that's the last thing we want. So what I need you to think about is not just conflict yourself and with others and how you navigate that, but how do you support others that end up in conflict? Now, what I will say is, people again think of conflict as negative. We need conflict. We need disagreements at least, so that we can identify the best course of action. We need to be comfortable to challenge one another. And a lot of that sits within culture. And what you will find is that people, if you can create the right culture, which takes lots of work and we'll cover in another video, but if you can create the right culture, you start to find that people feel a lot more comfortable disagreeing with one another, even in public forums, and it's no longer seen as a negative thing or a challenge, but it takes time to create that. But that's the ultimate goal, is to create this culture where people can disagree with one another openly and there are not hard feelings. People do not feel attacked in any sense. And what's interesting about conflict is that's exactly how people typically do feel, is attacked. The truth is, the way we respond to conflict, some people may even enter fight or flight, adrenaline, heartbeat raising, all these things served a purpose when you were in real danger or real conflict. So if you were hunting animals, or indeed an animal was hunting you, of course that's a life and death situation. You need to take immediate action, and typically aggression would be very useful in that scenario. So there's some natural responses, but the truth is, in the working world, it's not a life or death situation. So it's very easy to overreact because of the fight or flight, the elevated state that one may enter. The first conflict style is avoidance. And so, as it sounds and the name suggests, you are pretending that this conflict or this disagreement has not happened. So it doesn't really take a lot of energy, and it can be useful if the conflict does not need to be had and there is no benefit to trying to get your ideas or opinions or your way to work over the speed of just pretending that this has not happened. So just going with another person's idea or suggestion, if indeed that's what's happening. So again, where the solution doesn't really matter, this is quite a good tactic, or if indeed it is not even about a solution, avoiding and pretending that this happened can be fine. What I'd suggest is, in terms of personal conflict for something that is not really about the work, it could be about character, that people are in conflict, don't get on, the avoidance style can be quite useful when you're not 100% sure if, for example, you've been insulted or if someone's behaviour is inappropriate. The first time, you don't necessarily need to pull somebody on this kind of problem. What you need to think about is, I observe this, and just keep that in the back of your mind. And then if you observe it a second time, okay, I've observed this again, that's interesting. The third time is when you confront somebody about it. And this is more about personal respect than it is navigating others' conflict style, but it's a useful thing to know in terms of the avoidance style. Don't necessarily jump on somebody straight away and say, hey, I've noticed this, I felt that it was very disrespectful. You may be interpreting it. However, if you've seen that behaviour 3 times in a short space of time, then I would no longer avoid it. I would actually have the discussion, have the conflict. Number 2, the accommodating style. So when using this style, what you're actually doing is accommodating the others' opinions, decisions, and their way. And you're doing this at the expense of your own. Okay, so when somebody is accommodating somebody else, they are letting the other person's ideas, decisions, thoughts win. Okay? Now, this is a useful style again when there isn't necessarily time for conflict and the other person's suggestions, ideas are fit for purpose, so they're going to be useful in our terms, in major incident management, and they're going to work. There's not much point having a conflict around this. You can use this style when you want to keep peace within the team and you're essentially letting the other person's ideas, preferences, win over your own. Standing your ground is another conflict management style. Standing your ground, again, as the name suggests, is you standing firm behind your beliefs, your ideas, and your decisions. What you're essentially doing is you want your decisions, ideas, and beliefs to win over the others when you take this approach. In the short term, your ideas win. This can be very useful. However, if you overuse this style too much, there are some fairly severe negative consequences. If you always stand your ground with your peers and your colleagues, it leads to distrust, demotivation, and it leads to a lack of respect. And so I would suggest that choosing when to stand your ground and use this style is very useful. Always standing your ground absolutely creates a problem and disengagement within your peers. Compromising. Compromising is essentially where you and the others are coming together to compromise on elements of your ideas or your thoughts or decisions to come to some middle ground. So essentially there's a bit of give and take. So you will allow some give on one area and they may on another. And what you're doing here is you're respecting the other person's opinions, thoughts, and you're trying to create harmony within the team by compromising. So this is great for fostering trust in your peers and your co-workers, and people respect this. It's very, very useful. When you're talking about technical resolving groups in the context of major incidents, it's very useful for them to be compromising with one another. It's very useful for them to be showing each other that respect. And that's often a style that you probably want to urge them to take and try and encourage them to take. One of the things I should say with all of these is your job as this leader, and I'm talking about you helping them navigate conflict between one another. Yes, you can do that in a very literal sense when you're controlling bridge calls, but also having conversations outside of major incidents with them about conflict styles and sharing the 5 styles of conflict management with them and talking to them about, okay, well, we had some challenges here. I thought you might be interested in this, so that perhaps we can try and create a bit more harmony next time. It's actually sharing the models so they themselves too are also armed with an understanding of the models, the different options, the pros and cons of using each of the styles. And finally, collaboration. So when you collaborate with people, you really start to listen. You are co-creating a solution from scratch together. You are showing empathy and understanding and respect to the other individuals, and you want their input. This style is very, very useful for getting people to work together, for empowering them as a team, and for seeing high levels of performance. However, co-creating a solution can, in some scenarios, take longer than some of the other styles. And so it's really useful and important to understand this. If people have worked together for a long time, they know each other very well, they have a good understanding of cross disciplines, then it's not necessarily a problem. Where people don't know each other very well, co-creating a solution by collaboration can be a bit more challenging, and it does take time and there is going to be more discussion. But ultimately what we want is collaboration. We want this culture of collaboration. And so instead of people meeting head on and perhaps any of the other styles and there being conflict, or one party having to give over to the other's ideas or opinions, potentially feeling a certain way about that, what we want is collaboration. We want to maximise the collaboration, and that's our job as the leaders here, as major incident managers, to maximise the collaboration between your entire team, your wider major incident ecosystem, all of your suppliers, even your clients. We really want to maximise the performance and for everybody to feel like they're a part of the team and they are contributing to something. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you'd like to learn more about MIM, go to www.majorincidentmanagement.com. If you want to watch more videos, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also hit the notification bell to be alerted every time we release new content. Take care. Goodbye.
Oh.